Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, yes, I'm sunburned. I was outside yesterday and, well, I roasted. I'm a ginger, and that's what happens when you go outside without sunscreen. Anyways, here we've got a lot of news to talk about, and first up on the docket is PlayStation 4 emulation with PS Off. And PS Off just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, 2025 June 11 is the latest update for PS Off, or Piss Off, or subscribe to Mr. Sujano, depending on how you wanted to pronounce that. Anyways, here, this one has some fixes and some interesting things. They say here, thanks to network stack fixes and implementations, we got Little Big Planet 3 in-game state. You need to enable work-in-progress networking functionality and application-specific settings to make the game work. Plus, this release includes some random fixes that might help out with other games too. And PS Off is 100% free and open source. It's available for Windows, and if you're interested in learning more about it, like everything we talk about, links are in the description below right at the bottom. I don't hide my sources. And continuing to talk about PlayStation emulation, but going back one generation and talking about PS3 emulation on Android with PS3E. Now, we had talked about this one when it was submitted to the Google Play Store, but now it's been approved, and approved in two different forms, PS3E Free and PS3E Premium. There's no difference between the two except the price. The price here on PS3E Premium is to help the developer. Now, it's worth pointing out here, and just some food for thought, PS3E is not necessarily its own thing. It wasn't built from the ground up to emulate the PS3. PS3E is based on RPCS3, so in terms of PS3 compatibility and all of that, you've got RPCS3 to thank for that. So in terms of support, you may also want to check out RPCS3, and I'll just leave it at that. Also, because there was a little bit more here, PS3E had a bit of controversy surrounding it earlier on, where they said they'd release the source code once they got money for it. And they seem to have reversed that decision, thankfully, and they have released the source code. This is now open source. And if you're curious about it, the source code is up on GitHub, and like everything we talk about, links are in the description below at the bottom. This one does use Turnip, and I would say in terms of overall performance, it may vary from device to device. I will say, though, that in terms of PlayStation 3 emulation on Android on the Google Play Store, PCS3 is probably the only legitimate option right now. We'll have to wait and see what happens moving forward if anything else hits the Google Play Store. But right now, for PlayStation 3 emulation on the Google Play Store, PCS3 should be your only option. However, and this is a real big however, for PlayStation 3 emulation on Android, not on the Google Play Store, RPCSX UI Android has you covered. This one was formerly known as RPCS3 Android. It's being developed by someone who may have helped found RPCS3. It's not officially affiliated with RPCS3, but it is based on RPCS3. And the latest release here is April 25th. And speaking about friendly heads-ups and stuff on GitHub, next up we're talking about custom Mesa Turnip drivers. If you've got a Snapdragon CPU with an Adreno GPU, provided it's not a Snapdragon 8 Elite, you might be excited about this. So Mesa Turnip drivers version 25.2.0 revision 9 have just dropped. And with custom drivers, it's not necessarily one driver to be great with everything. You may have to experiment to see what drivers work with what phones and for what emulators and for what games. And continuing to talk about interesting stuff on GitHub, next up we're talking about Peanut GB. Peanut GB is a single file header Game Boy emulator library, and the aim is to make a high-speed and portable Game Boy emulator library that may be used for any platform that has a C99 compiler. They say this emulator is very fast, so much that it can run at full speed on a Raspberry Pi Pico. So at the time of filming, Peanut GB version 1.3.0 is the latest update. This update has a bunch of fixes, improvements, and optimizations. If you're interested in Game Boy emulation on super low-powered devices, Peanut GB may be up your alley. And continuing to talk about stuff on GitHub, and I guess just GitHub in general, next up here we're talking about GitHub's 1 billionth repository. Yes, there are 1 billion repositories on GitHub, and the 1 billionth one is called, well, that's the name of it. That person must have been waiting. But there is your 1 billionth repository. I'm not going to read that on camera, but feel free to check it out. And speaking about stuff, next up we're talking about MindsEye. And MindsEye has recently released and has been receiving mixed overall feedback. Its overall rating on Steam right now is mixed. Here is one of the screenshots that someone has taken for context. And furthermore, here is a bug that someone has encountered that they say is the creepiest bug they've ever witnessed. I don't know if that's the creepiest bug, but that's definitely a bug. It seems as if the developers are aware of these issues and they've posted an update here about an incoming hotfix up on Steam. They say, "Dear community, a heartfelt thank you to all our day one players. We know at launch MindsEye hasn't been without its challenges for some of you. Right now, our top priority is game performance. We understand that the requirements are high and have limited the experience for many of you. And for this, we sincerely apologize. Improving performance across all devices is our immediate focus. A path that begins with our commitment to address this is scheduled for the end of this week on PC, which also rolls out to consoles as soon as possible." If you've got MindsEye, I'd recommend checking out this post to see the specifics of what they're fixing and if what they're fixing is going to fix any issues you're having with the game. My gut tells me that this game was released way too early, but at least the developers are listening. But I don't know here. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. What are your thoughts about the launch of MindsEye? Did it remind you at all of Cyberpunk 2077? Was it a bit of deja vu? Do you think MindsEye has the potential to be a very good game? Do you think it can shape up to be a good game like Cyberpunk 2077? Let me know your thoughts, and if you bought MindsEye, how have your experiences been with it? And speaking about game launches, but successful game launches, next up we're talking about Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade right now on PC has an overwhelmingly positive review score on Steam, and this one is extremely popular. In fact, in the last 24 hours, at least according to SteamDB here, Stellar Blade is currently sitting in 5th most popular game overall, with 183,000 people currently playing the game at the exact same time. Stellar Blade is being reported as PlayStation's most successful launch on PC. I mean, look at it compared to games like Spider-Man and Horizon Zero Dawn and The Last of Us and God of War Ragnarok. These are not over 100,000 in terms of people playing it at the exact same time, where Stellar Blade has over 100,000 more people playing it than in second place here. That is absolutely crazy. I mean, that is huge. Stellar Blade is Steam Deck verified. It does have Denuvo, but that doesn't seem to be stopping people from picking it up. And if you played Stellar Blade on PC, let me know your experiences about it in the comments below and compare it to MindsEye if you've played both. And speaking about successes, next up we're talking about Capcom. And Capcom has had a very good couple of years. And Street Fighter 6 now, they're reporting, has sold over 5 million copies. And that seems to have been helped by the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, I don't know about you, but I find it very neat and very interesting that Capcom is doing so well in this gaming climate. Yeah, Monster Hunter is carrying them, I would say at least. But at the same time here, where companies are having layoffs and mergers and shutting down, Capcom seems to be expanding and growing. And also here that I find interesting, Capcom says it considers Switch 2 controversial game keycard titles as digital sales, and I would agree with them there. Now, game keycards continue to be a hot topic. I, for one, am not a big fan of them at all, and I don't have any use for them. Like, why would I want to stick a game keycard into the console and have it required to run a digital game? I'd rather just buy the game digitally. Yes, I understand why they exist, but at the same time, I don't think they need to exist. And it seems my opinion is not that unpopular. There's an interesting VGC article I'd recommend checking out. And let me know your thoughts about game keycards. But there are some people saying, I hate it. I think it's sort of lame. I don't know. I just feel like it's getting away. We're losing some of what made the business special. That quote was from Alex Hutchinson, who has had his hand in stuff like Far Cry 4, Assassin's Creed 3, and even more. And he goes on to say, it's funny that Nintendo is going to get away with it. It just shows you the power of nostalgia in our business. The way that they will beat up Microsoft versus Nintendo is just not the same. Especially in Europe. It's like, oh, Nintendo is doing it. All right, we're not going to say much. And Stephen Kick, the CEO of Night Dive Studios, says seeing Nintendo do this is a little disheartening. You would hope that a company that big has such a storied history would take preservation a little bit more seriously. And continuing to talk about Nintendo Switch 2 stuff, next up we're talking about Switch 2 sales figures. Now, we've talked about this a few different times in a few different videos because a bunch of different reports have come out. The first report was from some insiders, I guess, or some sources we didn't have confirmation about, saying that the Switch 2 sold 3 million units in the first day. And then there was another report that said the Switch 2 was not necessarily selling as great as some other consoles at launch. And now we've got a report from Nintendo saying Nintendo Switch 2 sells over 3.5 million units worldwide in first 4 days. Now for Nintendo and just in general, this is huge. Nintendo says this is the highest global sales level for any Nintendo hardware within the first 4 days. And that is saying quite a bit, and I'm wondering if this momentum will keep up. I am curious to hear your thoughts on the matter, though, because I'm thinking here if Nintendo can keep stock flowing and the demand is there aside from the initial launch demand, then yeah, the Switch 2 could be a huge seller provided momentum can continue. That's the key, is momentum. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Early signs seem very promising, and the price of the Switch 2 does not seem to be a factor, which I am very surprised about. I mean, a lot of people, myself included, I still complain about the price. I'm surprised that the price of the Switch 2 and the fact that they're still supporting the regular Switch does not seem to be slowing down sales at all. And on a side note here, for the record, because I get asked this one, I'm not even joking, like multiple times a day. No, I have not bought a Switch 2. I've got no interest in buying a Switch 2 right now. The launch titles to me are not strong enough to warrant to buy a Switch 2. Well, that and a bunch of different reasons. I don't like the price point, and well, there are some things from Nintendo that I'm not a big fan of, so I'm not really interested in buying a Switch 2. Maybe I will in the future if there's some must-have titles that are exclusive to the platform. But I have an original Switch, and if they're still pushing out games for that original Switch, there's really no incentive for me to update. There's no exclusives yet that would really make me consider the system. And on top of that, I would probably just buy one used and save quite a bit of money, especially considering a lot of this is going to be digital with that whole game keycard stuff and all of that. And speaking about sales momentum and keeping stuff in stock and keeping things flowing, next up we're talking about the Steam Deck, which is having a pretty big problem right now. So this is reported over on Gaming on Linux, and they say supply chain issues are making the Steam Deck OLED go out of stock. So if you were interested in picking up a Steam Deck OLED, you may be out of luck at least for a little bit. I will say I have an original Steam Deck LCD, and it's absolutely fine. The OLED screen is way better, but at the same time here, the original screen is fine. And looking at the stock levels here, hoping Valve says by the end of summer that stock may return. And this is a good thing. They say currently expect prices will remain the same. I hope that will be the case. I hope prices for these are not jacked up. And speaking about prices for things, last up here we're talking about an individual who put prices on cheats for Fortnite, and well, now Epic is going after them. So this is coming from the Epic Games newsroom over on Twitter, and they say an update on our fight against cheating in Fortnite. We've filed a new lawsuit against an individual who developed and sold cheating software that helped players see through walls and auto-aim. We're also going after people who helped sell the software. Creating and selling software to help others cheat is against the rules, and we'll keep fighting to keep it out of Fortnite. I'm assuming if you play Fortnite, you'll probably be happy to hear this, and hopefully it deters others from cheating online in multiplayer matches. We'll have to wait and see if it's actually a deterrent, and if the cost factor for the cheats was the tipping point on this one. Let me know your thoughts. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Feel free to discuss anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.